Welcome back to the Upper Tier Transfer Show. The Transfer Show we bring you each and every week on the Upper Tier as part of the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show are available on Anchor. And if you'd like to contact the show, you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Joining me today, as always, for our weekly Transfer Show, my co-host of the Transfer Show, Dean. Dean, how you doing, my man?
Couldn't be better, comprende.
Really liking that background for the week that's in it.
The week that's in it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Where do we start? I suppose the big news of the week was one that the Premier League have renewed the $5 billion deal for the domestic TV rights for the Premier League. Absolutely massive news and absolutely massive money. What was you thinking on that?
And they said that the top six were going to lose out over this, the falling through of the ESL. I'm a happy man. I'd say the other 14 teams are disgusted because we all know that the top six get the big dividends paid out before anyone else does. So the year Liverpool have had, the way the pandemic has affected coffers in all the big clubs except for probably Man City and Chelsea. Yeah, it's a good ending to a bad season, and especially with the talk of Liverpool having to go back to the old sell to buy. That money coming in now, and especially if we get top four, that could be a big kick up the arse to push us on next season. But yeah, it's good all around because it's going to affect in a positive way as well the lower teams as well, because the structure of it this time around is supposed to be massive. There's a lot more money going to be going to the lower clubs as well. So I'm all for helping out those teams that we don't want to see another Bury FC or stuff like that. So yeah, positive news. As I said, always happy to hear positive news.
Great stuff. Someone we've been talking about on the Transfer Show the last few weeks, Edson Cavani's after re-signing for Man United. Huge news for United. Has been absolutely brilliant this season. So I'm sure United are delighted with that news.
Just looks like I have no words there. Yeah, we were talking to Mark, I think the other night, and we were talking about Cavani. As I said, you don't want to see our big rivals being successful, but that's a massive positive for Man United. Love Cavani as a player. He's one of those old school out and out strikers. He knows how to pull defenders out when there's someone running through. He knows how to hold up play. As I said, he's great on the ground with the ball. He's great in the air, and we're only going to see better things from Cavani next season. As I said, he took a bit of time to get running at Man United, and we've seen his stats when he started. My brother's a Man United fan. We were talking about it throughout the Liverpool United game, didn't we? His stats when he starts are better than Harry Kane's. That's a massive boost. And with the way United have played this season, if they get Cavani back at the start of the season after a long rest, he doesn't have the Euros to go to, fully fit. He's still only 33. All this talk of him, his age and all, 33 is a fucking kid in football nowadays. You know what I mean? He looks after himself. We can only see positive things happening with him in the Man United team, which don't necessarily like saying, but great news for Man United fans. Anyone that's not happy with Cavani re-signing, I don't know what you're doing supporting football.
Yeah, no, I think they're over the moon about it, because one, they would have had to go out and find another striker, which I don't think financially it would have suited them at the time, because we know that there's going to be some constraints there due to COVID and stuff like that, plus the Glazers and everything else that's going on. But two, he's vital to the development of the likes of Greenwood and Rashford and stuff like that, isn't he still?
Massively.
Yeah, so also this week, news breaking, Juventus are in serious trouble. Looks like they could end up in the Europa League. But Buffon came out this week, absolute legend of the game. Legend at Juventus. What a goalkeeper, what a servant. But he's come out this week to say he's leaving Juventus, which is not good news, coupled with the fact that they're struggling in the league and looking at Europa League, which will be a massive downsizing for Juventus.
Yeah, big time. But is it really a shock, him leaving? He's 43 years of age, you know what I mean? he's a stalwart at the club. But I've talked about, Mio and Darren were talking in the match reaction in the Liverpool game about the standard of European football is on the slide. But the thing that shocks me about this, the dramatic decline in Italian or in European football, is it's collectively the Italian league. Now, that's not to take anything away from Inter Milan. You know, they've had a phenomenal season, but they've relied solely on winning that league to stay in business, because they're in financial trouble as well. They haven't been paying wages. They haven't been playing out bonuses. There was talks if they didn't win the league that they'd have to get rid of Lukaku. I can see there was talk of Lukaku going to Chelsea. But I can see him stay. Why would you're league champions? You're going to be in the Champions League. But that, I'm just using that as an example because Juventus were so dominant there for so long, and then the season they've had, as I said, it's a dramatic decline. But it's so concerning because it's being so collective. Like all of Bayern Munich, it's probably a once off. They still won the league, but we thought they were gonna retain the Champions League. They dropped off as well this season. The Spanish league, you have 4 teams fighting out for the league, I think, going into the last 2 or 3 games. Juventus, though, was the big shock for me. They had a good start to the season. Now Buffon has said he's leaving. I'd imagine Ronaldo was going to push his way out the door, because we all know he's a bit of a fucking prima donna diva. Chiellini, Bonucci, De Ligt, that hasn't worked out at all. There was talk of him being the next big thing. That hasn't worked out at all.
Rabiot, who we spoke about last week.
Rabiot, yeah. It's if you're a Juventus fan, you're very, very worried, because if Ronaldo goes, Chiellini and Bonucci aren't going to stick around. They haven't got the legs anymore to stick around much longer. You wonder what's going to happen with the league. Are they going to have to sell him to get funds in? Because, let's be real. I can imagine if the fans were in that ground, they probably got away scot-free this season, because I can't imagine the fans would be happy now sitting around to watch what they've had to put up with this season. But yeah, I'm not surprised at Buffon going. He'd probably go off to America now and live it out a couple of years in the sunshine and probably LA, or he'd probably go to David Beckham's into Miami or something. But yeah, if you're a Juventus fan, you're very, very concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose with Juventus, when you look at it as well, I mean, they suffered not dissimilar to our own Liverpool in terms of not having fans. The fans there is a big deal. You know what I mean? So that's obviously hampered them this year as well. Let's move on. Another lad that we speak about a lot on the transfer show, who's had an absolute blistering second half of the season, Jesse Lingard. It looks like West Ham are not going to be able to stump up what's needed to sign the deal. And United now are switching their thoughts to using them as part of the deal for Jadon Sancho. That's a very bad move for West Ham. He's been absolutely outstanding for them. They should be doing everything they can to keep him, shouldn't they? Let's be realistic. They were in the fight for top 4, but I think we kind of all, inside, without saying it, we kind of had a feeling they wouldn't get Champions League football. Kudos to them, they stuck it out. But I am very, very surprised the way this has panned out with Lingard. It all comes down to he doesn't have a say in the decision. If United turn around to West Ham and say, West Ham can get on their hands and knees and say, look, we want him to stay. He might want to stay, but at the end of the day, it's down to United. And if they have any chance of signing Sancho, and to see the second half of the season that Lingard has had, I'd imagine he'll go to the Euros with England, probably have a good tournament. Dortmund are obviously going to be looking at replacing Sancho, and he's not, well, I was going to say he's not as good as Sancho, but his form since the turn of the season has been phenomenal. I'm a big advocate for him. I'm actually delighted that it worked out for him, solely because he's not wearing a Man United jersey. But he sat in the darkness for how long at Man United, and had the ability which he's shown at West Ham. And he was doing it for West Ham when they were missing Rice, when Antonio was out. You know what I mean? It's just sad that it's kind of
gone to the wayward side regarding the top four. But again, it's down to greed with Man United. They don't care about the players' personal feelings. Whatever Lingard wants, if they have the opportunity to sell or to sign Sancho, and Dortmund are interested in taking Lingard, West Ham may as well just shut the door and wave him goodbye, because it's not going to happen for them.
Yeah, I don't know. Could you see Jesse Lingard in Germany? It'd be a kind of a weird one, wouldn't it?
It'd be very, very strange. You also have to wonder as well, West Ham, Declan Rice is probably going to leave in the summer too. You know what I mean? And
which would lead you to believe that they would have the money to get Jesse Lingard.
Yeah, because Rice isn't going to go cheap. Like, we'll get to the Salah price soon. But imagine if Declan Rice signs for anyone in England, it's going to be in excess of 50 million. And I'd imagine Lingard signed a one-year extension at United last year, but does that mean he only has 2 years left in his contract, or when is his contract actually up at United?
As far as I know, it's 2 years. So they want to move him on this year, because if he gets another year, then it becomes a problem. Obviously, he can go on a free.
I said the exact thing to my brother when Lingard signed that contract extension. I said the only reason he's getting that contract extension is so when Man United sell him, there's an extra year on the contract to buy out for whoever wants to sign him. But you'd imagine, if Declan Rice does go, it's going to be in excess of 50 million. I can't see Lingard going for more than 25, 30 max.
30 bill, yeah.
So you'd love it to come down to the player's decision, and you'd love Lingard to turn around and say, no, I'm coming here. I've enjoyed my football. He's really, really happy there. You see all the TikToks and you see all the ints and all. He's having a ball there. He's enjoying his football again, and he's gone through a rough patch with his mother and that. But yeah, again, when it's a club like Man United, they don't give a shit about your how you're enjoying your football. At the end of the day, it's all about the coffers there. And if, as I said, if Sancho was coming in and Dortmund are anyway interested in Lingard, well, I totally agree with you. It's a strange one to see him moving outside of England.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting time for West Ham as well, because the thoughts of losing Declan Rice and Jesse Lingard, in terms of if you look at how pivotal those players have been in their run since Christmas. And then who's to say Mikel Antonio doesn't want to move on to a bigger club or want to move on somewhere, So they're going to have to be very careful. I think West Ham this year, on the back of a really solid, season this season, they're going to have to try and build on that. Not do what they normally do, whereas have a real good solid season and then drop away and get back into that relegation dogfight as they usually do, So it's Liverpool fans this week talking about replacing Adrian with Loris Karius. Where did this come from when I read it? It was crazy. I think it was reported in the Echo or something like that. Is that because Adrian's moving out and they just don't want to spend any money? We'll throw number 2 in there because we're not going to use him that much, assuming Alisson doesn't get injured.
Any Liverpool fan that would have Loris Karius over Kevin Kelleher isn't a football fan for me. The guy, Kevin Kelleher, for me, is as good as Adrian. He's better than Karius. He's stood up in the games that he's played. He's a great shot stopper. He's great with his getting the ball out. His distribution. He's still only a kid, but he's doing it with the best goalkeeper in the world as well. You know what I mean? He's only gonna learn good things. But you understand you don't want to be spending mad money. Look at Chelsea; they're stuck with the most expensive goalkeeper in the world on the bench. But you understand you don't want to go out and spend mad money. I just have someone sitting there. But for me, the obvious one is if Adrian is going back to Spain, Kevin Kelleher is number 2 for me. I do not agree whatsoever. I'm not going to get wrapped up in the whole what happened in the Champions League final. All these things happen, but not hope. There's no way I'd be taking Loris Karius back as Liverpool number 2 over Kevin Kelleher. And I'd like to imagine that there's over 50% of Liverpool fans who will agree with me on that one. He dirtied his babe. He wasn't happy when he left. It is what it is, what happened in the Champions League. It's time to move on from that. Why go back to that? I just can't imagine first game of the season next season Alisson, a long kick out, tears his hamstring, and you're stuck with Karius in goal for 3-4 months. No, not for me. I just no, just a big no.
No forgiveness at all on this transfer show.
It's not, but it's not even about forgiveness. It's not even about forgiveness. No, he had a couple of good games from Liverpool. He made a couple of decent saves and all, but no, it's just not going to work out. You know what I mean? All it's going to take is one big mistake, say against a United or against a Man City in one of those massive games. Because when you think about it, to get back in next season, like, we're going to have a quick start. And my fear would be, Klopp, if Klopp took him back, we'd all be asking questions, because he didn't trust him in the first place. That's why he let him go. So why would you bring him back? It just makes no sense whatsoever to bring him back.
I suppose the reason you bring him back in terms of is that, like, it's not going to cost you, and obviously you want to prioritise your transfer budget elsewhere. So from that point of view, it kind of makes sense. But in terms of the history, I mean, we're forgetting as well, he went to Turkey and he made similar mistakes. It's not like he went to Turkey.
They wanted him gone after 3 or 4 months.
I know, yeah.
So it's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, honestly, would you rather give Kevin Kelleher the number 2, or do you still think that he's a bit off from that?
I suppose in terms of looking at your transfer priorities, yes, you would promote him up to number 2. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, even if you had to put in a number 3 there, I mean, surely to God, we have someone in the academy or someone,
Liverpool have about 27 goalkeepers in the academy.
So there has to be someone there that you could step up into a number 3 that, just gets around the first team, but doesn't necessarily have to play and stuff like that, because obviously our transfer budget.
The year last season when we won the league, when Alisson got injured, we all shit the bed. And Adrian came in and he was phenomenal for me. I thought he was outstanding when he came in. Every goalkeeper makes like a couple of boo-boos. We've seen that prick at Man City. He's made a few. Do you know what I mean? Don't get me started on the game. I see United fans are already turning on Henderson because of his last few games. You know what I mean? But like, if Adrian's gone back to Spain, he apparently wants to go back to Bilbao or something like that. For me, I back Kevin Kelleher 100%. When he came in, I thought he's been very, very good. He's made some outstanding saves. Yeah. And the positive for having Kevin Kelleher as number 2 is, I always, when I'm thinking about stuff football wise, you always think worst case scenario, like if we lost Salah over Van Dijk, you know what I mean, stuff like that. You look at Salah's goals record. But with the Alisson thing, I know he's been injured a couple of times, but he's been not injured more so. You know what I mean? If he's to stay in goal, we can play Kelleher in. Let's say we get Europa League football next year. Kelleher plays Europa League. The League Cup games, stick him in. But whoever you're pushing up to your tour choice is also going to help out with those cup games too. So the more Kelleher plays and goes for Liverpool, i.e. Europa League football, if that's the case next season, he's only going to benefit. As I said, he's doing it with a great goalkeeping coach. He's doing it with the best goalkeeper in the world. And I'd rather see him, and I'd imagine he'd rather do it that way at Liverpool than go off on loan. But then again, he could go off on loan and be like your man Sam Johnson in West Brom. You know what I mean? He could be the standout player in a team. He could be as good in goal as Harvey Elliott has been outfield for Blackburn. You know what I mean? Yeah. He has that ability in him. And if he goes off to Liverpool, what age is he now? He's early 20s, is he?
Yeah.
If he goes off and has a good season somewhere, he probably think himself, right, well, I'll stay here because I'm going to get first team football. I'd like to see him stay at Liverpool. I don't even want to mention the name Loris Karius anymore.
Coming out this week, Gary Neville mentioned that it might be time for Man United to cash in on Daniel James. It's hard to see where Dan James kind of fits into that United side going forward. He's been a kind of a bit part player this season.
Yeah.
But having said that, when he come in, he's done okay, for a lad who's been out of the team. But when he's played, and he does give you that bit of pace on the wing and stuff like that, he's lightning fast. But I wonder as well, even if you did cash in on him, I mean, what are you going to generate? I mean, I think they paid somewhere between 15 or 18 million for him. what's he going to go for? 20, 25?
2025. If I was him, the worry would be as well is that Rashford plays best football when he's out on the left as well. So who are they going to? Rashford, surely Ole has seen now this season that Rashford has to play out on the left. I think James himself is probably regretting the not going to Leeds, because apparently that deal was done, and then at the last minute United came in and swooped him away. For him personally, he should be thinking, I'm good enough to play every week in the Premier League. Yeah. So it's probably best to go off and play first team football. But he might go to West Ham if United are looking at getting rid of Lingard to make funds for the Sancho deal or as a big part in it. West Ham might be a good move for him.
Yeah,
there is options there.
Yeah, I wonder would there be a case for putting them out on loan as opposed to selling, and just see what happens. Because I think with Dan James, I think if he gets enough football and enough regular football, not dissimilar to Jesse Lingard, I think he could become a very good player.
He is. I think he's a great player. He's been a big threat attacking wise for Man United when he's played. He's got whenever he has played, he's picked up goals and assists. Ole is so set in his ways though with his attack. When Martial's not injured, he plays, which for me is mental, because I don't rate Martial at all. He's not consistent enough. United next season, surely it has to be Cavani through the middle with Rashford on the left, and they're probably looking at Sancho out on the right. And you've still got Greenwood. And you've still got Greenwood as well. And for me, Greenwood is knocking on the door of being a starter every week. He's an unbelievable player. He is good enough. You look at his stats as a teenager. He's up there with Michael Owen. He's up there at that level already. So I don't know. United have so many attackers as well. They do need to kind of take the burden off that and worry about their frailties in the middle of the park and a centre half. So I'd imagine that they'll try and sell Dan James to open up funds to bolster the centre half position. But we also have to worry about, not me, I don't give a shit personally. United are also probably thinking, what's going to happen with Pogba after the Euros? For me, if Ronaldo leaves Juventus, there's going to be a massive carousel in Europe after the Euros. You're going to have a player moving from, say, Juventus, and it's going to have a knock-on effect. And I personally think that Pogba is going to leave Man United. I think he's played some good football since all this came out with Raiola to get himself into the shop window. And if Ronaldo leaves Juventus, who's to say he doesn't go back there?
I think it wouldn't be this season, because I think this season, if Juventus end up in the Europa League, it's going to be a struggle really for them to really bring in that top elite player. I mean, Pogba's not going to leave United in the Champions League to go to Juventus in the Europa League, regardless of how much he loves Juventus and the connections there and stuff like that. I'd say he'd probably wait a year and see what happens. And then, I mean, you have to remember with Pogba as well, I mean, he could hang around and then they'd go on a free.
Yeah, true.
So where he pockets
they're running a risk. They're running a massive risk with that as well, because if he goes on a free, they've lost out on at least 80 million there. It's the same with us, with Salah. We need to get him tied down. The worry is if they want to sell to buy, he goes in the summer, and we'll get onto his asking price now shortly. But the worry is with Pogba, he could be looking at, and we all know the way Mino Raiola works, he could be looking at saying, I'm going to get about 20 million. If you go on a free, I'm getting about 20 million into the coffers before we even talk about your wages. So,
yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of clubs this summer now putting the gun to players' heads. It's either sign or you get transfer listed. There's no more messing around.
Darren said it on Thursday night about a lot of stuff this summer is going to be like the NFL. It's going to be like a draft. You can have him with a few bob and we'll take him off you. This summer is going to be one of the weirdest transfer windows we've all seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, clubs are going to have to get very inventive. Bayern Munich reportedly have offered Gini Wijnaldum a 3-year deal. I think as Liverpool fans, we know that Gini's gone anyway. He's not staying. But he's just trying to figure out what's the best day for him. But I think Bayern are the only team so far that have offered him a solid 3-year deal. We know that he potentially wants to go to Barcelona. But Barcelona really haven't put that 3-year deal on the table. So he's holding out to see will they'll probably match the Bayern deal, and then it'll be off he'll go, you know. But sad to see him go. I mean, even the other day there against United, he was, you know, really, really good, you know. So
when he's tuned in and he's motivated, I can't fault Wijnaldum at all. He took the foot off the pedal there for a few weeks recently. I was a massive critic of him because he's been for the last 4 years. He's been one of our most consistent players. That midfield of Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Fabinho was one of the best midfields on the planet for me. You know, 3 lads who aren't massive names, but you don't have to be a big name to be a good player. You know what I mean? Just people that put them 3 names into the mix, I would say that it's probably the 10 big names in world football, and say I'd have those guys over. The way Liverpool's midfield ran for the year we finished second to City by a point, the Champions League winning season and the league winning season, for me that was up there in the top 3 best midfields in world football. You know, it was a well-oiled machine. The 3 of them knew their job. Fabinho sat in front of the defence. He broke down everything. Henderson, we don't even need to talk about what he brings to the team, but Wijnaldum done that dogged work. You know what I mean? He was up and down, and 3 very, very underrated players for me. It's going to be very, very sad to see Wijnaldum go. I understand he wants to leave. He's accomplished everything he could at Liverpool. You know, he wants that new challenge. He wants that Dutch connection with Koeman. What's pissing me off about the Munich thing is that his agent contacted Bayern Munich and said, "Oh, please take him." Let the player make his decision. I hate all that shit again, coming down to agents and making phone calls and saying, "Oh, we think that he could be great in your team." If they were that interested, they'd be knocking on the door all season. They would have been mentioned because the only 2 names I've heard all season were Inter Milan and Barcelona. You know, so for his agent to go out, it's also strange as well. Why is this still not being settled? Like, we just want clarification. Just come out and say, he said no, he doesn't want the offer we've given him, and he's leaving. Because I'd imagine you will get a couple of fans that are upset, but I'd imagine that a lot of Liverpool fans will applaud him and say thanks for everything, you know, and all the best in the future.
Yeah, no, I think Liverpool's stance on it has been fairly upfront. You know, they've turned around all along and said, look, we've offered him a contract, we've offered him terms that we believe, you know, at this stage in his career and stuff like that should be acceptable to the player, and he's turned them down. So he's made it very clear he wants to move away. I think what happens is he's just waiting to see what happens between the Euros and stuff like that, and then he'll settle his he'll go somewhere, you know what I mean? But as you said, I mean, to be no ill will to him or anything like that. I mean, he's been a great servant for us and been an outstanding player and outstanding professional. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to move on and face different challenges or something like that. It's not the worst thing in the world.
It's not like he hasn't signed a new deal and he's done what Coutinho done and he's feigned injury and he's came out publicly and said it's his dream to move away. Anytime he's being asked about the contract situation, he said, look, everybody knows my stance on this. I'm happy here. Ask the club. And it's always been that way. He's never thrown the club under the bus. You know, he's got on with his job. He's worked his bollocks off, bar those few games. But everybody in the Liverpool team has been the same way this season. So, look, it's going to be resolved sooner rather than later. But as you said, there's going to be no ill will towards him. And, you know, thanks for the memories. Enjoy your new challenge and all the best in the future.
Yeah. Again, this week, the whole, I suppose, on the back of the failing of the Champions League semi-final, the whole Mbappe conundrum has raised its head again. And there's questions marks now. It's interesting in the conversation. It's PSG, will he stay? It's Real Madrid, will he go? But Liverpool are also in that conversation still at the moment.
Yeah, we're not going away, are we?
No, we're not going away, but I can't envisage a situation where we're going to be in a position to land them, are we? in the current climate. And I don't see Real Madrid either having the financial clout to do it either. So my guess is he's probably going to have to stay at PSG, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think the worry with PSG, is, again, if he stays for a year until teams have got the money to buy him, the price is going down. You know what I mean? It's going down like a sandtimer. It's going down drastically. If he has a great Euros, which I'd imagine he will, if he has a good World Cup, which I imagine he will, can you imagine next summer him leaving PSG for 60 or 70 million? There'll be fucking riots in Paris.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at his valuation from when we first started talking about him, it's nearly halved at this stage.
But the only thing I will say, and I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, the pipe dream for me is Haaland or Mbappe. The demands that Haaland wants, he can fuck off, in my opinion, because he's been a phenomenal goal scorer, but he's achieved nothing in football so far to come out and say that. Mbappe has won the Euros, I think, but he's won the World Cup. Does his talking on the pitch. The only thing that I'm kind of thinking would push that deal through was the whole Nike thing. If we get Champions League football and Nike are willing to meet FSG in the middle, the same way Adidas did with Pogba and his wages, that's the only way I can see this happening. But I do believe it all comes down to Champions League football. Like if Liverpool get Champions League football this season, it's like surviving relegation on the last day of the season, or it's like getting promoted from the Championship on the last day of the season. That's the only way I can see that happening with Liverpool. But going to Real Madrid, that 500, did they really need to put 500 million into renovating the Bernabeu? All for the sake of putting a roof on, I don't know. And with the way the standard at Real Madrid has dropped, the owners are probably thinking, well, the King of Spain is probably thinking, and your man Perez is probably thinking, they've given their whole budget on your man Alaba, 400 grand a week and a massive signing on fee.
Plus you've got the whole Varane and
yeah,
Sergio Ramos and all that kind of conundrum as well. So you would think if some of those kind of Real Madrid legends, if you like, are going to be going out the door, they're going to have to make a mark. They're going to have to make a Galactico signing, aren't they?
You look at Real Madrid, the Liverpool made Real Madrid look better than they were in that Champions the quarterfinal first leg, hands down. Chelsea made them look ordinary. They haven't been great in the league. When looking at the second leg of the Liverpool game, the lads that are coming in off the bench, they're no great shakes. Like that Real Madrid team it'd be like Juventus. They've got to bring in. They can't go back to their ways of bringing 5 or 6 Galacticos every summer. So they need to be careful what they wish for. If I'm Real Madrid, I'm looking at getting rid of Ramos. Varane is still only very, very young, and you've got Varane and Alaba as centre halves. They play 3 at the back, or else they play the 4 at the back. But yeah, it's a very, very.
It's Varane that will generate the money, isn't it? Though Ramos won't generate the money because he probably end up going to the MLS.
Yeah, but if they sell Varane and then they're stuck with Ramos, who's picking up injuries a lot more frequently now when he's getting on in age and all. If Varane turns around and he says, "Yeah, all right, fair enough, I want to go," and generates a few bob, where do they invest that money? Because they're a centre half short.
Plus, there's talk of Hazard potentially going back to Chelsea on a cut price deal.
That's madness, though. Where does he fit in at Chelsea?
I don't know, but that's the talk that was going around that potentially he could return to Chelsea for 50-60 million,
Because like Ian would probably agree with me when he hears this, but looking at Chelsea's midfield now, where like Kante is the best midfielder in the world at the moment. You've got Kovacic coming back. Kovacic for me was not consistent enough. Tuchel came in, and then you have Kante and Kovacic playing there. But Mason Mount is the first name on the team sheet at Chelsea. Havertz is going to be a fucking beast next year. But imagine Ziyech will be even better next season. And then they need to add a goal scorer. So who's going to be happy out of that front four at Chelsea to sit on the bench because Hazard had a shit time at Real Madrid and Chelsea want to bring him back? You know what I mean? He's too good to sit on the bench. But then Real Madrid might turn around and say, all right, the PSG can have Hazard, and that can be a make way in the Mbappe deal.
Yeah, I suppose you're looking at I mean, you would think Giroud might move on this summer because he probably want to play more football.
Just on Giroud there, there's talk of Liverpool going for a striker. I'd have Giroud at Liverpool every day of the week. I've always been an advocate of his. Giroud is the best striker that Chelsea have. See all those chances Timo Werner has missed. For me, Giroud scores 65 to 75% of them chances. I think he's an absolute beast.
I suppose the question, looking at it being such a different striker, it's whether Giroud would get into those positions that Werner gets into. You know, those run-on positions. Giroud doesn't kind of play like that. He's more, what would you call it? He's more a set-piece finisher, if you like, and stuff like that. You know, so it's a different.
He's so underrated. I think he's an absolutely outstanding striker. He's so underrated. So underrated.
Yeah, I think the Chelsea fans rate him well, but it's just they've been so drenched with talent. It's trying to figure out where to fit him in and stuff like that. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, 15 or 20 minutes ago in the Champions League final, he comes on and bags a winner or something like that. You know what I mean?
I can see
he's the man for the big occasion.
But also with Chelsea, you've Callum Hudson-Odoi is coming through, phenomenal player. Yeah. I can see Tammy Abraham going in the summer.
Definitely.
He's not doing much there at all.
He's not in any of Tuchel's plans.
And he's not going to go for big money either. But there's so much bullshit in football, especially if you're English. Your price just seems to skyrocket through the roof. For me, Tammy Abraham isn't anywhere near good enough to be in a top 6 team. Villa, Southampton, something like that would suit him.
Maybe West Ham.
There you go.
He'd be a good partner there for Mikel Antonio, you know.
If he wasn't English, you wouldn't hear anything of him.
Yeah, true. What are we looking at next? Mourinho, looking like he's going to try and go in for a transfer of Kurt Zouma. Interesting. I mean, I know Mourinho holds Kurt Zouma in high regard and stuff like that. And again, with Kurt Zouma, it's been a difficult season for him, obviously, because trying to get in between Christian and Rudiger is very, very difficult with the form those boys have shown. And Thiago there as well. So it might be time for Kurt Zouma to move on, and probably Roma would probably suit well with him, especially having the link there with Jose Mourinho. But in fairness to Kurt Zouma, when he has come in, he's normally done a decent job. I know at times he's come in and he's looked a little bit shaky and stuff like that, but a lot of that is down to the fact that you don't have consistent first-team football. But when he has had a run on the side, he's been solid enough. But could be a good move for him.
Yeah, what's kind of gone against Kurt Zouma is that Rudiger's turned into the best centre half on the planet since Tuchel came in. Because if Tuchel had came in and seen the way Lampard had ran his back three and just said, well, yeah, we'll just leave Rudiger to sit until the end of the season and then sell him on. Kurt Zouma would be the first choice centre half. Don't see Rudiger going anywhere from Chelsea. Thiago Silva probably got another year in him, and you know you need that. He just sits in the middle of the back three. He's that leader. You know what I mean? He's that born winner. Christensen isn't too shabby either, a centre half. But the big talking point is if they get Varane. So if I'm Kurt Zouma, I'm saying, yeah, look, I've paid my dues here, going off, new challenge. And that's not to say that he's shying away from the challenge at Chelsea, but he's still only a young player, you know, and going to work with someone who, as much as Mourinho does all of our fucking heads in at times, to go off and play for someone who holds you in such high regard. There's nothing better for a footballer than going to play for someone who has that confidence in you.
Yeah, and you look at the moves so far that have happened into the Serie A. I mean, you know, Chris Smalling has gone over there, done really well. Ashley Young gone over there, done really well. Lukaku has been absolutely outstanding. Mkhitaryan, you know, the list goes on and on. Once they make the switch, their career revs up and all. And there's even talk of Lukaku coming back this summer to the Premier League. You know, so it's no harm even going over there for a season or two, establish yourself, get plenty of first-team football, stuff like that, and then potentially come back, you know. Oliver Kahn, one of the greatest goalkeepers
Not coming
ever.
out of retirement, is he?
No, he's saying that the Erling Haaland deal to Bayern Munich would be unthinkable. And I think he's only expressing what the whole football world is saying anyway. When the news broke about the stuff from Barcelona with Mino Raiola, I think everyone was in the same boat. Everyone's thinking the same thing, regardless of the wealth of your club or whether you're a Chelsea or a Man City or a PSG or whatever. It's just, it'd be fool's gold, wouldn't it, really, to throw that money at a deal like that, you know what I mean?
Like I say about Darren, our good friend Darren, he's probably the only Man United fan I'll applaud and say talks sense. I can only applaud anybody in football who comes out and says stuff like this. Because I've said it 100 times already, the worst thing that happened to Haaland was going with Mino Raiola. The man is a parasite. He's poison in football. As good as Haaland is, and he'll come in and take the torch off Lewandowski, it's not fathomable. You know, there's so much going on in world football at the moment, and for any team, look, if Liverpool went down and signed him and he was to come into Liverpool and score the amount of goals he's being scored, and be like, yeah, well and good. But for me, any team in world football that's thinking of that, surely you've got 2 or 3 problem positions in your team that you could put that money into. Give him. There's talk of him next. If they were talking about if he doesn't sign for anyone this summer, that it's to Bayern Munich next summer. But if he goes to the Euros and is absolutely world class, and then goes to the World Cup if they qualify and is absolutely world class, and then scores another 30, 35 goals in all competitions next summer, the price isn't going to drop.
Yeah, I suppose.
Where is anybody getting the money for him?
Yeah, the only concern I have with Erling Haaland is, you know, the way people use the Bundesliga as a benchmark can be very, very dangerous in terms of, you know, you could be world class in the Bundesliga, but it doesn't necessarily. We've seen it with Timo Werner this year, absolutely struggling in the Premier League. He's trying his damnedest and he's trying his hardest, but it just hasn't worked this season. And there's no doubt next season with a full pre-season and more coaching off Tuchel, he will improve and he will put away more of those chances. But when you think of Timo Werner, who was in the Bundesliga, was an absolute goal machine. And I just wonder with Erling Haaland as well. I know he's a monster of a man as well and stuff like that, but I'm just wondering, would that form transfer over into a league like the Premier League that's so competitive? It's the toughest league in the world without a shadow of a doubt. It is the Premier League. And we've seen it time and time again when players come in from the Bundesliga. They don't necessarily bring that form that you initially purchased them on, and it transfers in. So that would be my concern. I still think he's a goal machine, but I think his valuation is just off the Richter. I would go as far as to say his valuation is double what it should be.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
That's what I really think. And I just think so long as they keep on spouting this over and over again, they're just going to be laughed at. And it's about time that the football world, even the rich clubs, stood up and said, hang on a minute, this is nonsense, you know what I mean? I know a lot of the time they love signing players because they're kind of like little trophies for them and all that. We got them and you didn't, and you got them and we didn't, and all that kind of thing. But to be throwing that type of money at that kid, you know, and not even throwing the money at the kid, but to be throwing the money at the agent and throwing the money at the dad is absolutely scandalous in world football. It shouldn't be allowed.
Noel, that price tag solely stems from Mino Raiola. He sat down with Borussia Dortmund, told them what he could get for him, and it's going to backfire because, well, Dortmund are going to be happy to keep him. You know what I mean? But Mino Raiola, he's going to push teams away. What you were saying there about the standard of German football. Look, as great as Lewandowski is, he had offers from England. And for me, he took the easy option and said, no, I'll stay here because he knew he'd score goals. Now, kudos to him. You know what I mean? He should have won the Ballon d'Or last year. Yeah. But Mino Raiola should be careful what he wishes for, because if he does go to England and shits the bed and it doesn't work out for him, he'd spend a lot of time in obscurity.
Yeah, true. I just think you know, the whole Erling Haaland thing has become very quiet as well, because the PR that they did on it was absolutely shocking. You know what I mean? And it was a great move by Barcelona to go straight out into the press and go, look at what he asked us for. You know what I mean? It absolutely destroyed. Most teams just turned around. Most teams who were sitting around going Erling Haaland suddenly turned around and go, whoa. You know, so it's it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But I mean, I suppose the risk from Dortmund as well is that they end up losing them on a free if they don't pull the trigger at some stage. You know what I mean? But
just touching on that, I just want to say fair play to Barcelona in putting all that out there, because we know Klopp's an admirer of Haaland, but we also know that Klopp hates players that are all about this.
Well, he has no relationship with Mino Raiola at all. He won't deal with Mino Raiola, so I don't think so. It'll be an option for us. Moving on, United for Pau Torres, who's had an outstanding season with Villarreal. Seems a snip of 30 million. Kind of weird that people will be dragging their heels over this. I mean, 30 million for this guy is an absolute snip, you know.
Yeah, especially with your man Eric Boy made of gingerbread biscuits, and Lindelof just seems to be on cloud QQ at times. And the fridge, the big unit, Harry Maguire. There's all this talk of Harry Maguire needs a player at his level beside him. What level would that be? I'm not just saying this because Harry Maguire plays for Man United, but he's one of the most overrated centre-halves in football.
I don't know. Do you really think that? I mean, you look at the match there the other night against Liverpool. He was badly missed. Badly missed. You know, I don't know. I think I've been a critic of Harry Maguire. But it's mainly related, I think, to the price tag. I think he was way overvalued, and I think United at a time were held over a barrel, as often they are in a transfer window. But I think if you park the price tag and the 80 million, and it's 10 million above Virgil van Dijk, I think if you look at him on the basis, I think in the second half of the season, I think he's been really, really good and really, really solid. And I think when you don't have him there, it makes a huge difference. I think I wouldn't call him a leader as in a captain. I don't think he should be captain United. I think to be honest with you, I think if they took the captaincy off him and they took that off his back, I think you'd see an even better Harry Maguire.
Possibly so.
But I do think he is a loss when they don't have him. I think the likes of Boy and Lindelof, Tunsabi has struggled really. I mean, he's come in at times and he's been really good, but the times when he's played really well, then they've dropped him. So United is kind of a weird conundrum insofar as when you play really well, you get dropped. I mean, you look at Greenwood playing really well, gets dropped. Tunsabi playing really well, gets dropped. Boy, who was playing really well, gets dropped. So it's kind of a weird situation. All he has is a sort of a fascination with sort of Lindelof and Maguire. And safe to say that partnership at times has let him down this season. You can't keep on. I mean, I think they've gained 18 points from losing positions this season. Whether you're going to be able to replicate that next year or not, I don't know. That would be a huge uphill task. You can't keep on. I mean, you've seen it when they played Liverpool the other night and they tried to do the comeback thing again. It's not always going to work out for you. But I do think Maguire's a loss. I think also if he gets to play in the Europa League final and in the Euros, I think you'll see a better Harry Maguire next year, a more mature Harry Maguire next year. And he won't get cut as easily as he has been this year on the turn with players.
I'm definitely not saying that he's a bad player. I just think he's overrated, and maybe so. It's because of the price tag and what have you. But we're talking about if he's the standard bearer, and that's the level of centre half that other players at United have to reach. That just shows you how bad the likes of Lindelof is. But what you said at the very beginning of the topic, Pau Torres at 30 million. What are you waiting for? Like, honestly, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting to play him in the Europa League final and see how good of a game he has? United have been crying out for a centre half, a strong, decent centre half pairing for a long, long time. And if Pau Torres was to come in there and have, he's gone to the Euros, is he?
I would assume so.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah.
Goes to the Euros, has a good Euros. Maguire goes to the Euros. You know, if this injury that Maguire has as well is worse than thought, he could benefit from Maguire not going to the Euros. You know what I mean? I'd imagine he will be back, but the basis of a good team is a strong backbone. They need to figure out the goalkeeper position. They're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard places. Who's going to buy the guy for the money that's wanted?
Nobody's going to buy him at that money. Not at that wage level.
United fans are questioning Dean Henderson because he's made some bad mistakes recently. I just hope that doesn't, because he's an absolutely world-class goalkeeper. We've seen it at Sheffield United last year. I hope that's not a hindrance on him, because some players nowadays, when they start getting criticism, it makes or breaks them. But if United were to get their goalkeeper sorted and get a strong centre half pairing, we know what Fernandes can do when he's not rolling around the ground crying. We know what Cavani's going to bring. We know what Rashford can do off the left. We know what Mason Greenwood can do. As much as we hate Man United, if they get the signings right in the summer, they're going to be right up there.
I think the problem with them is they just kind of you would assume this year that a lot of teams will want to do their business early and get it done and not go into the Euros potentially chasing players that their value, if they play well, is only going to go up. But I just find with United, they're always so lackluster at doing their business. When do they ever sign a player and just go in and go, right, we want Pau Torres, 30 million, there you go, deal done, sign on the dotted line, move on to the next thing. They don't operate that way.
No.
United will be signing Pau Torres on the 31st of August or whatever it is, last minute kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll be an emergency. Can we get an extension to get this deal done? See, the thing when we've seen it with Harry Maguire, the thing with Man United and signing players, Noel, it's Man United. So other teams know that they have money. They're not going to let them shit all over them.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that it's always a thing about United, isn't it? They just don't go in and say, right, we want to sign X, Y, and Z. Go, pay the money, get the job done, get them in, get them a full. They end up going into the season with no pre-season for some of these players over this kind of carry on.
But you have the United fans coming out and they're all against the Glazers and all, and they have the shepherd, Gary Neville, with the fucking going around with all the sheep following all. The Glazers make money available. Let's be honest, they've spent, I think, is it just below $1 billion or just over $1 billion since Fergie has left in net. Yeah. So they're making funds available. The problem with Man United is when David Gill left, they brought in a man who knew nothing about football to try and get deals done. Yeah. United need someone that has God forbid Man United get someone like Michael Edwards in to sort out deals, because they have the money there. If they got someone in with that kind of brains, United fans shouldn't really necessarily be directing all their hatred at the Glazers. United fans are fickle because they thought that when Ferguson left that they were just continuing to be successful. That was never going to be the case. David Moyes never got time. It was going to take 2 or 3 years at least to rebuild a team under a new manager. Every manager there has been given money, just the wrong decisions have been made. And the problem that Man United fans should have is they're linked with Sancho. They can never get it done. They've been linked with X, Y, and Z, as you said. They can never get it done. They were linked with a centre half. They tried to get Van Dijk. He said he wanted Liverpool and Liverpool only. They went for Harry Maguire.
Fabinho.
Yeah.
It's the perfect example. They were signing Fabinho on the Friday and he signed for us on the Monday.
Yeah, I remember getting, I think you sent me about that, and I was like, what? No, we didn't. And then next of all, my phone just started going ping, 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 ping. Redmen TV were bleeding, running around and nip outside Anfield celebrating. I'm like, that's how to get shit done under the radar. You will never get Jurgen Klopp coming out and talking about how great a player is. You'll never get Jurgen Klopp coming out and saying we're going to spend big in the summer. Why? Because as soon as Jurgen Klopp says, yeah, we have funds available, that automatically, the ears perk up on every big club around, and the lesser clubs who have standout players, and they're probably thinking, he just said Liverpool have money. If he wants a fella off us who's worth 25 million, we want 40 million.
Yeah.
That's the problem with Man United, is they'll be held to ransom. And Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp will either tell you to touch on, we don't want you.
We did it with Fekir.
Or we get the better deal.
Yeah, when Fekir's brother came in looking for a slice of the cake, he was told to leave the party.
And he done an interview recently, and he said that's one of his biggest regrets If that was my brother, I'd be saying, stand at the wall there and I'd be just throwing darts at you all day.
Yeah. I think with United as well, when you like there's understandable frustration there in terms of the dividends that the owners are taking out and the way the steering of the debt is and stuff like that and all, you know. So it's more that than I think the actual spend. I mean, obviously at times they've spent some bad money, but I also think if you look at the billion that they've spent, there's probably 20% of that they could have saved by a better transfer strategy. Like when you look at, say, Harry Maguire, for example, Harry Maguire was gone for 65 million when Man City pulled out of the deal. And then he suddenly went 65 to 80 million overnight when it went to United. So United should have been a lot more clever in terms of that transfer. And they should have held Leicester to the barrel and said to Leicester, right, City have backed out at 65 million, we'll give you 68 million or something like that. But instead, they just, threw all that money at the wall. And look, Leicester would have sold Harry Maguire for 65 million. Let's not be stupid here.
Leicester would have sold him for 50 million, Noel. If United had, as I said, if United had someone like Michael Edwards doing business with them, you get 50 million up front and you get the 15, 20, 25 million in bonuses. Why? Because
if it's Mike Edwards, you get 5 million up front.
And we'll pay a million every year for the next 8 years.
Yeah, that's Mike Edwards for you, absolutely.
And then Leicester would be shaking his hand and he'd be like, yeah, no problem. Why don't we just walk you to the door? Thanks very much for everything.
Yeah, you often wonder what clubs. I'd say when clubs get a call from Mike Edwards, they go, "Oh Jesus Christ, here we go." You know what I mean? Because they know they're going to get their trousers taken down.
You know what, Noel? The worst thing I heard after the whole ESL thing was that he was stepping away from the club. That for me was the biggest. That was the worst thing that could have happened.
It would be the equivalent of losing a top player.
Because he's going in, it basically means he's going into someone else to do that job that he's. And the fear is he goes into a Man United, he goes into a Man City, he goes into a Chelsea. Because let's be real, if he walked away from Liverpool today, you will have the top 100 clubs in world football on the phone to him.
Yeah,
you know absolutely. What I
mean? 100%. Liverpool came out this week setting a price for Mo Salah in excess of 80 million. Looking at the match the other night, I wonder should they be setting a price for Sadio Mane and not Mo Salah, because Mo Salah's come out and done a few interviews and seems, contrary to popular belief, seems very happy at Liverpool at the moment. And a lot of the talk about the contract and the agent and all the other stuff that was going on has died down an awful lot. But of course, Mane doesn't seem too happy there. I don't know what's going on in the background. I know him and Salah haven't been best buddies for a while, but I wonder, is it because Salah's doing so well that Mane seems so fed up and seems like the forgotten child, if you like. But I'm not too sure. But what was you thinking of the 80 million? I mean, 80 million I would have thought just get you into the conversation, you know what I mean? But we'll see. We'll have to see what happens. But as always, great transfer show. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Dynamo Podcast Network. This has been your transfer show with myself and Dean. Also, audio versions of the show available on Anchor. We will catch you again next week with the latest transfer gossip. Till then, cheers. Cheers, Dean.